My name's Chris.
And I'm a tart.
You are the cheerful tart.
The cheerful tart.
And this is the Washing Up podcast, and it's pastry week.
I thought it was tart week.
It nearly
Tart
was.
And strudel. I thought it was my week. They've just gone, you know what, Kristie's been a big fan. She's been here for us. Let's just do a whole week in her honour.
Let's do one named after a weird British pub, the Tart and Strudel.
It really is. It was after an Austrian count who fell in love with the village barmaid.
Count Tart von Strudel. The good old Tart and Strudel. It's better than the Cricketer's Arms or one of those sorts of
Queen's
things.
Legs.
You know,
What time do they open?
Oh, they never open. Anyway, if they do open,
I've heard it's satisfactory.
If they do open, it's very reserved. So the good old Tart and Strudel week, as it kind of became known. So obviously it's quarterfinals.
Yes.
We get a little bit more time with the bakers. We get a couple of interesting challenges. We get 2 tarts for the price of one. Which usually, who's saying no?
No, but the thing is, this challenge was not about the tarts. As we see, when we come to the technical is about the bakers having knowledge and skill.
Oh, we'll get to the technical in a minute. But I would have preferred to see 2 things that weren't tarts. But having said that, didn't hate it. Don't panic. This isn't the last week. Oh, you do better, guys.
Don't tart shame.
I'm allowed to put forward an opinion.
Okay.
I'm allowed to say I would have liked 2 things.
No tart shaming.
I'm not tart shaming at all. In fact, I thought the first tart was perfect. But I thought I would have liked to have seen something like maybe a pie for pastry week, especially since... Let's get to the game card, shall we? Because most of my game card was written around the idea there would be puff pastry.
Well...
Not a fucking skerrick.
No, not a puff
None.
to be seen.
Not a puff at all.
Magic Dragon, not Cheech and Chong.
So first of all, Yuzu made it back to the game card, and it really shouldn't have.
Power Girls.
Rough Puff made it to the game card, and it really shouldn't have. Square on this card appears on the official GCBS bingo card. Made it because Bruno once again mentioned butter, and didn't he mention it on all cards? And sorry again to the Great Canadian Baking Show Instagram account. I was a bit tardy in getting my game card up today, so you were forced to fend for yourself largely, and I'm sorry for that. I will do better next week. I will be early next week. Look, I'll get it up on Friday for you, just so you've got the weekend to think of some things to steal. Borrow. Use. Baker proclaims this is my week. Didn't do it. They've all learned.
Yes.
They got close, but they didn't do it.
Cigar.
A lamination issue.
Pastry.
Well, it's very hard to have a lamination issue if there's no fucking puff pastry. Baker admits they haven't practiced this to time. No, didn't happen.
Have that. No.
Baker helps another baker. No.
No, we actually had the reverse where Tanner's gone, I'm not going to speak that out loud. I've had myself a Bakewell tart and I know the order.
However, the only hit we had was Bruno mentioning butter.
And, you know, that's a safe bet.
It's enough.
Alan is never going to take his hat off.
Alan is never going to take his hat off. Again, I would like the idea of Alan removing his hat to reveal, again, another hat. And I've put this forward. I want it to be like a babushka series of hats.
Yes, and I feel that he's just made a Rick Astley promise to that hat.
I'm never going to give it up.
Never going to put it down.
Either that or Together Forever, which is the other Rick Astley song. Talk about the other Astley song, Together Forever. It's exactly the same, but with slightly different words. All right, so as we get into the quarterfinal, let me just say right now, we start off with, Kyla giving 60s air hostess vibes.
I'm loving whoever's styling her this season.
Absolutely fantastic.
Ponytail's fun. I was expecting a Mary Tyler Moore moment, you know.
Yeah, she was going to make it after all. I was waiting for the spin and the throw, but probably not advisable in the pavilion.
No.
So we start off with strudel.
Strudel.
So at least one. We had to make one. Had to be at least 12 inches with any filling.
That's what she said.
No time.
But that's what she said.
No time. 2.5 hours was how long you had to do your 12-inch filled strudel.
What would you have filled your strudel with?
Damn you. Chorizo.
Chorizo, of course you go
Why?
chorizo.
Because me.
I like a sweet strudel. I'm a simple girl, simple taste.
You're a simple tart.
I'm a simple tart. I like the filling with apple and cinnamon.
Yeah, no, apple and cinnamon's a good call. Now,
or maybe some pear.
I loved Sheldon's call at the start too, where he said that pastry can smell fear. Which is kind of true because you can smell burning pastry. So, and that would raise fear inside the pavilion.
Which would make the pastry go even more burnt.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the fun part about the strudel challenge was that the dough needs to be able to be stretched to great distances without tearing.
So we got 50 shades of strudel.
Well, we kind of did because, first of all, we had a lot of beating of the strudel and flogging of the strudel and whipping of the strudel and banging of the strudel.
I was waiting for someone to, erect, the X. What's it called? The one... I've seen Bonding, if you haven't seen that Netflix show, where,
Nobody judge me. The St. George's Cross.
St. George's Cross.
Nobody judge me. So it's obviously Honest and Andrew's Cross would be one way of doing it, I suppose. You could, theoretically you could. I mean, splinters.
Splinters? Oh, yuck! You don't want wood bits in your strudel.
No, you want to do it differently. But there was a lot of beating and tearing, as we said, at the strudel. Although again, you didn't want the thing to tear completely. Mahathi had a few small
little
tears
at the
appeared,
end.
but she fixed it. Right, she fixed them, so they were fine.
There was no leakage in her strudel.
No, there wasn't. Now, when we went around, and we started with Tanner.
Yes.
Now, Tanner admitted that he'd only started baking because of the Great Canadian Baking Show.
That is pretty phenomenal. I mean, what is it? 4 seasons. So 3 years, essentially, he's had.
Yep. And
the fact, fuck it,
the fact that he only started baking because of the Great Canadian Baking Show, and it was because his partner showed him.
Yeah.
It's he showed him the things hey, watch this. He's like, oh, okay, that was fascinating to me. So he decided to do mushroom and wild rice with blue cheese. And I love where he's like, so it's very French and I'm terrified. And he goes, what? He goes, because I'm scared of you, Bruno. You're scary.
and Bruno's face is the sweetest.
And Bruno's like, I'm the nicest person around. And he is. We can say that. Bruno is the nicest human.
And, it wasn't him trying to do a humble brag or anything. It's just this is fact. And, it's really Kyla who's the mean one in the tent. You get, I don't know.
Evil pavilion ice queen Kyla Keneally. No,
I can't go there.
She can't do it.
It's just hard.
She presented you with birthday cakes. All right?
Just there's nothing nasty.
No, we can't even pretend there's a mean judge.
Maybe there's a mean cardinal out the back. Just one mean bird in the whole of that area.
Thank you for clarifying bird for a second there. I thought you meant there was an actual angry cardinal out the back with a staff banging on the pavilion going, get off my lawn.
Sacrilegious. Don't tempt me, you devil bakers.
I gave it up for Lent. Anyway.
She's 6 months away.
15 years ago, I gave up baked goods for Lent. Don't make me cave. Anyway, I don't know why he's so British and angry. Anyway, so then they went around and they showed them again banging on the door. At which point, Maggie, might I add, made one of the greatest catches I've seen in a very long time. When she hit it, throws the dough, and throws the hands out, catches, and looks at the camera like, shit.
Well, that was lucky.
That nearly happened.
I presume that's why they were instructed to beat really hard on the benches, is to drown out the cardinal.
Yeah, that was the point. On the backyard going, no, damn it, no.
The producer's like, guys, can you just whack it? We don't need to actually do that. I know, but it would be good just so we can get a few.
We need to get a little bit of clean audio for the cardinal.
Yeah.
So can we fix that up, please? He's like, damn you. Anyway, so caramel pear strudel is what Maggie was making, and they were like, you seem like you... She goes, I've done this before.
I feel like you missed a trick there, because she made sweet caramel with walnuts.
That's true. And okay, so I've got to say, and there are people out here, obviously, who have watched previous episodes of the Great British Bake Off. Was I the only person... when she started to candy the walnuts,
expecting a little...
who had flashbacks
to jousting action?
To jousting nights.
Andrew's jousting
nights on Great British Bake Off, complete with, well, officially jousting poles.
But I feel that Maggie Beer could essentially capture what was going on there, and that it was all popped up and happy to see them.
Anyway, Mahathi, I think, demonstrated a level of depth of knowledge that is uncanny. And I think it's a proud moment for all of baking, where Mahathi looks at the camera and says, it's pastry week, so you need to make good pastry.
Well done, Mahathi.
Thank you, Mahathi. Thank you.
deep
Thank you.
insight there.
Thank you very much, Mahathi. We're
People
really...
might think that's a simple statement and maybe just a little bit like observational, but it really is what underpins this whole
It really
episode.
is the key, is the can you make good pastry? So at this point, she was making paneer strudel.
Paneer!
Paneer!
It's the Frasier drinking game.
The Frasier drinking game for paneer. But no, actually, paneer strudel is what she was making. And we've used paneer. The only time we ever really used paneer is on the, again,
On
pastry.
your pastry.
Yeah, pastry again. It's the pastry squares.
Yeah, with the cashew and the curry leaves and whatever else you put on it. That's delicious.
Yes, it's basically curried pastry squares, and you put paneer on top of it with
Cashew nuts.
cashew nuts and things like that.
I presume they can't do that in Mahathi's house because, you know, there is the great cashew war between the pirate king.
Yeah, the cashew.
fruit pirate king and the fruit pirate princess.
Yeah, we'll come back to the Fruit Pirate King because he's going to sort of make another appearance.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some questions, Mahathi.
Yes.
We're going to need some answers. So we cut to Sheldon. And Sheldon makes a great statement that I personally agree with. Pork belly. The best cut of pork.
It really is. It's so diverse. You can either have it crunchy, getting, you know, the crispy pork belly, or you can, like, just render it down so it is this gelatinous jelly of deliciousness. It is.
Or you can do what Sheldon did, which is get the entirety of the pork belly, cut the fat off it, and only use the fat.
Oh my gosh. It's just, that blew my mind.
I
I'm
know,
like,
and I love this idea of he looks at them and goes, "It's dessert pork belly." And look, I consider any pork belly that I eat as an anytime food. So, like, if I have pork belly for breakfast, it's a breakfast cereal. If I have pork belly after I've eaten something else at night time, that's dessert pork belly.
I'm really into the after dinner mint pork belly.
After dinner mint pork belly is fantastic morning snack.
Just an appetit.
That would be fantastic. Cocktail pork belly is out of this world, though.
Scroggin pork belly for your hikes.
Good old scroggin. So he had sticky rice and the pork fat in there.
I thought that sounded good.
It did.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that in a minute. Then Rafficat. So Rafficat was making chicken pot pie strudel. Now, at this point, we were like, ooh, this sounds fantastic. This sounds really good. And they went with carrots. And we're like, ooh,
Okay.
like that. Bit of chili. Oh, I like that a
here for
lot.
that.
Peas.
Nah. Lost us there, Rafficat.
Rafficat, we have been biggest supporters of you. We absolutely adore you. And you put peas in. No.
It's what does my head in. I love a good samosa, but you know what's in samosas?
Peas.
Peas. Whether you get the meat ones, the veggie ones, just peas.
Love a samosa, hate a pea.
Oh, it's like
It's a problem.
save a horse, ride a cowboy. It's
Okay, sure, why not? So then we get to watch them actually doing the final lot of the pulling, and like they're talking about, you know, you must be able to see the tea towel, and then it got to you must be able to read the manual underneath it.
I'm presuming it's like you need to be able to, I don't know, use an electron microscope through it to see beyond the pastry.
It needs to be able to be used as a camera lens inside the pavilion as a backup. It needs to replace some of the panes of glass or the plastic in the side of the
It
pavilion.
needs to double as a splash guard. In
Yep,
COVID
100%
times.
in the COVID times. Needs to double as a splash guard. All of these things that it must be able to do.
Replacement rear view mirror.
Yeah, completely. Bruno's replacement eyes. You know, all of
Nothing
those
will
sorts of things.
replace Bruno's eyes.
Oh, we're off. Here we go. So at 30 minutes to go, that's when they decided to do all their extra bits because they were sitting around, like just done. And we'll come back to that in a minute because it becomes important. So Maggie's doing her candied walnuts, and I'm going, please, candy walnut penis. Please, candy walnut penis.
And now I know what to get you for Christmas.
Candy walnut penis. It's the Charlie the Unicorn Volume 5. Candy walnut penis. So Tanner was making a béarnaise, because of course he was. Mahathi was getting the curry leaves and sort of using those as decoration.
I was
which
waiting
really
for her
good.
to like deep fry them.
Yeah,
I
they're
love
deep
a
fried.
crunchy.
Yeah,
Ooh.
deep fried curry leaves are amazing. But Sheldon was making his spicy nuts.
Oh, Sheldon.
Okay, now Sheldon, we would normally make some form of immature joke about that.
About your
But
spicy nuts.
Here's the thing.
And just you popping them in your mouth.
But here's the thing. They look too fucking good. I can't be bothered to make a joke about
No,
them.
there's nothing to smuttify here because the other intelligent thing he did too is not only did he make enough to put in the bowl to serve to the judges, there was definitely a chef serving on the side.
There was definite snackability right there.
Not just for the hosts, but for himself. And he was smart because he created things that are individual serves. So in COVID times, easy to distribute.
But what they didn't think about in this challenge, the only thing that I think production hadn't thought about, was once they put all their strudels in, didn't take long to do the decoration.
No.
They were just sitting.
Yeah, but that...
No, but this is the point.
Cup of
They were
tea.
sitting, there was peace, there was quiet,
Yeah,
there was tranquility.
yeah.
Then Maggie happened, and she opened the oven door and was, I'm going in. It's like, and then she's tapping. Before that, she's banging on the bench.
Yeah,
and
just
Tanner
with
just
her
looks at her.
mittened hand.
Tanner just looks at her and goes, "You're drawing a crowd. Everyone's watching. Everyone's watching.
You know
you
why?
now."
Because she saw the cardinal coming back and she's like, I will preempt this. I will just get a bit of random beating going
I
on.
want my strudel. It's bang, 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 bang. Bloody angry cardinals. They ruin everything, don't they?
He's like, strudel is Satan's noodle.
Anyway, so the judgment.
He came back with some frankincense and holy water to exercise the pavilion.
To exercise the judgment, which is what happened. By the way, Mahathi, I just wanted to add, used a lot of the different spices and stuff as decorations on the site. It was really pretty. I'm just envious of that ability. So in the judgment, again, by the actual judges, not by the angry cardinal outside, Tanner, they said it had a very classic look. The edges were shrinking a little bit. The filling was really enjoyable. And Bruno mentioned, but the smart thing you did was you rebasted it in butter. And like Tanner gave a look like, of course I fucking did, I'm not an idiot. And he's like, great balance. But then like Bruno was like, it is very French. We should probably call it Le Strudel. And
I
I'm
told
like,
you that's how you French everything.
but this is the thing. Bruno, what are you doing? You're giving Kristie some form of credibility on something that is clearly bullshit.
I think you'll find it's called
Le bullshit. I knew that. No, it's Le Merde. I at least know that. But I don't even know. I can't remember what's French for cow. Anyway, but Le Merde is le shit. But Le bullshit will have to do for now. But you don't let things and it just becomes French. And I don't care what Bruno just did.
It's not just Bruno. Think of le snack. French for le something.
Fed for the snack.
Yeah.
Go on.
There's Le Sands, Brighton Le Sands, where my sister lives.
Lasagna.
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 Lesbians. It's lady gays in French.
Lesbians.
Lesbians. The lady gays in France. It's Le Benese. It's great bread, good people.
Oh no.
Where you find them in Lebanon.
Oh, anyway. No, you can't just let things and make them French. It doesn't work. Bruno, stop enabling her, please.
Latan?
No! The Canadians don't know about Latan.
Well,
anyway.
you need to put up the old 80s ad, obviously, on our Instagram.
It's Le Shit sunscreen. Anyway. Sorry, Le Merde sunscreen, not ice cream. Anyway,
Just on
Mahathi.
that, do you remember in Australia when we only had an SPF rating of 25?
That was not appropriate. Not appropriate.
It's like that was the highest SPF rating. Now they're up to what, 200? 250?
They're
Something?
still not quite at redhead territory, so I'm not sure. Mahathi. They said it was easily the most exciting looking strudel they'd ever seen, which was, not exactly high praise. Strudels aren't exciting. So, but the curry leaves look good. They said the dough, however, needed a bit more stretch to it. They said the spinach, paneer, and cashew gave it really excellent flavours. So it was a good thing she wrangled them away from the cashew war. Now, Maggie, they said it was packed with filling. The great flavour was in that pear, but the dough was a little undercooked. And they said the further in you got, it became more translucent.
I just have to wonder, is that the oven? Or maybe the moisture that's in there because of all the fruit?
So, I mean, Maggie, to be fair, usually wouldn't bake to a timer. Normally she'd bake to a screaming child and go, enough, that'll do, eat something, and pull it out of the oven. So, Rafficat, they said it had a good colour, it needed a bit more crispness, however, and they said that the roll wasn't really tight enough. When you looked at it, it wasn't. It was like she'd rolled it sort of once. It was a big sort of cavern where you really need to get the roll on the strudel to be a lot tighter than that. Kyla absolutely loved the texture and the colour, and they said that the flavours were nice, and they had a little bit of a kick with that chili.
Yeah.
And Bruno was still getting over the last time that somebody nearly killed him. I'm not going to name anybody. James! Sorry about that. Really nasty. Back off. Yeah. Sheldon. They said his pastry had a really nice sheen, and they said it was very flaky.
Yep.
And the dough was perfect in terms of how thin it was too.
Yeah.
They did say the flavour was lovely. But
the texture.
Yeah, the wet rice with the pork fat was ruining the crispiness of the dough. Oh. And then when Kyla had the crispy nuts and from Bruno, they were like, these are amazing. And Kyla's like, they needed to be in there.
I love where Sheldon's brain goes. You know, I want to see him experiment more. I'd love to see him progress to a show like MasterChef or something because his flavour combinations are pretty, like, okay, they might not hit 100% of the time, but they're interesting to watch.
I think so. Yeah,
and he can just cook nuts for everyone.
I'm happy with that. All right, so the technical. Now, last week we were really quite critical of the technical. This week's technical, Kyla said that everything you need to know is up here and pointed to her head, and they announced that the challenge was a Bakewell tart, 2.5 hours. Now, a lot of the bakers were going, I haven't really heard of a Bakewell. I don't know. We are sitting there when they announced Bakewell tart.
Yeah, just going, do you not watch British?
This is a standard. All right? This is a British bake-off standard. We have had the Bakewell tart. We've had Bakewell slice.
Yep.
Right? Bakewell tart is an absolute standard of the bake-off format.
Now, what I love about this is the journey that the editors took us on, because we're both there basically going, a Bakewell tart. We're at the quarterfinals and you're putting up a Bakewell tart. But then
it got brilliant.
A page and a quarter.
And they turn around to...
A page and a quarter. That's all it was.
In the pre-instructions, they're like, well, what do we do? Well, we've basically given them nothing.
Yes.
Because we want to see if they understand technique and if they can actually put all this together. And like when they announced it, we did. We literally said, it's a Bakewell tart in the quarterfinal. What the hell are you doing? Then when they went, we've really given them nothing, and they showed the recipe and went through what they did or didn't give them. We're just sitting there going,
brilliant.
This is brilliant. This is absolutely spectacular.
This is spot on.
This is good use of removing the recipe, because a Bakewell tart is, again, it's a bake-off classic, it's a bake-off staple. You need to know how to do this.
And there are components of like, you need to know how to do the pastry, you need to know how to do the frangipane, you need to know how to do the jam,
and then the icing. And this is the thing, they're all different. They're all different techniques. The pastry is a different technique to the frangipane, which is a different technique to the jam, which does need to be strained. Rafficat worked that bit out.
Yep.
And the icing, which is again a different technique. So there's 4 different techniques just in the making of the composite parts before you assemble them into the order, which is also a technique in itself.
Absolutely, because 1, you need to know the order.
Yep.
And 2, you need to be able to have made the pastry so it holds it without losing its delicacy.
Yep.
Delicacy?
Yeah, that'll do.
And then make sure that the jam and the frangipane do not combine, get that baked, and then you have to get your feathering, which looks simple but is deceptively complex.
And that's something that came across when they were putting it all together. And like when Sheldon at the end, when he looks at them and goes, everyone else went with straight lines, did they?
I kind of like his spider web design.
But the answer is yes, because straight lines are what is expected. So, this is how much they left off. Some of the instructions included, make jam, which I loved. And again, it was, do you strain? Do you not strain? And Rafficat's like, I'm not mucking around this time. I'm straining, which is the right answer.
It's like, get out the anisole. I'm straining. Took that to the wrong place.
Moving on. Make frangipane. That was it. And there was a whole conversation with people. Do you know what frangipane is? Do you understand how to make frangipane?
Sheldon's like, it's an almond pasty.
Yes. And then things that you're not expecting to be part of this challenge that became part of this challenge, like a big conversation about, do I put the frangipane in the fridge or do I leave it out? Because if I put it in the fridge, I worry it'll set too much. But if I leave it out, I'm worried it'll go a bit softer. I don't know what to do. And there was this big debate and discussion about what you did with the frangipane.
It was beautiful, and I loved being able to see. And because it is the quarterfinals, we've got more time. There are only 5 bakers in the tent. A pavilion, so we have got more time to hear their thinking and their stories and see what they decide. And yeah, absolutely loved it. And Sheldon just going, okay, the recipe says bake it till golden on top, so that to me tells me that the frangipane goes on top.
Yes, and we had blind bake, adjusting the temperature of the oven as needed. And it's like, again, genius. The way this was done was spectacular. Make icing and place in a bowl. Separate 3 tablespoons into a separate bowl for desired shade of red, which left it up to them what the shade of red was.
But here's the thing, right? That was subjective. And I think, yes, a bake or tart is that kind of like, sickly pink colour. But it says desired shade. Who's desiring it? If I'm desiring it, it's going to be like fucking scarlet. It is going to be redder than the glacé cherry that you pop on top.
But I thought that was just, again, this gathering of brilliance. There's not a lot in terms of like the watching them to talk about with this challenge, because it's the genius of this challenge rested in the construction of it. The construction of the challenge was more about their ability to understand baking techniques and know what to do and when to do it and how to put it together.
But this was also a technical for the viewer, because it is something that we're familiar with, that we've seen done on so many different... basically every version of Bake Off or the baking show has done a bake or tart.
Yes.
If not multiple times, if you're British.
Exactly. They've done a tart and a slice. Yeah. So... Again, it's an old standard, but it's a good one. It's a good one to do. Now, when Maggie was doing hers and we realised that it was upside down, it was really funny. We were watching and like, oh my God, this is brilliant. This is amazing. They cut to Maggie and the frangipane's there and then the jam goes on top, and we both at the same time, without looking at each other, just went, oh, Maggie.
It was like Carrie at the prom.
And then when we got to Sheldon painting the circle, there was at the same time, there was no Sheldon, right? It was legitimately, we didn't plan it out. It was like watching it going, it was just at the same time because we know what's expected. The one I felt sorry for, really sorry for, was Mahathi.
Oh.
So
I just wanted to pass that girl some tampons for her tart. It was leakage. It was the day that you've got your new white skirt and you're going to wear it to school and ta-da, you're a lady now.
Now, I know, Mahathi, that you usually sometimes listen like at lunch at work, so sorry for Kristie's vivid imagery there.
Hope you're having a nice lunch today. Not tomato soup, I hope.
Anyway, moving on, and I hope it didn't ruin your lunch. So poor Mahathi's though, because again, like what happened was when she put the other stuff in, it was still too hot. Hadn't cooled down properly yet. So when she put the cold in with it, it cracked the outside of the shell. So the judgment.
Yes.
Now with Sheldon, they said it wasn't the pattern they were after. It was a pretty pattern, but not the one they were after. A little more red than pink, and they said the bake as well was quite dark. Then when they got into it, the jam, they said that the problem was that the bottom layer was really good, but then the jam was pooling in the corners.
Yeah.
So it wasn't completely thin. It was like thin at the bottom and then pooling in the side.
So maybe that was the consistency of it wasn't quite. Yeah.
Quite probably that was the issue. They said the jam was good, but the frangipane, unfortunately, was quite waxy.
Frangipane, not frangipane.
I know, frangipane. I knew I was going to do that. I'm so pissed off with myself. I knew I was going to do that.
That's all right.
It's frangipane.
We're just a flowering bush.
Anyway, Maggie. So they said with Maggie, it was an icing and a feathering issue with hers. They said the feathering hadn't worked. They said it wasn't baked through, and like you could see it wasn't baked through. But they said the shell was great. Yeah. But when they cut into it, you could just see it was this mess. And you're like, oh, Maggie, this is not a good week.
And just the tip. Just gently pointing downwards.
And then you got Rafficat. So Rafficat, they said, had a really good colour.
Yeah.
On the side of the bake. The top was unfortunately a little bit messy for her though. The lines looked really good in terms of inside. You can see all the different layers and they look perfect. And then they said that the flavours were well balanced as well.
Now, did she deliberately miss the glacé cherry, or was that a conscious decision because she's like, they're too delicious, I'm going to eat them?
Maybe she's never tried one.
Look, Rafficat...
I mean, when we get to the vegetables, like she talks about that, so...
I just want to suggest, Rafficat, if you haven't had a glacé cherry, try it like my mum does. Make a pineapple boat. You quarter up some pineapples. I'll send you the link to show you how they look like. You need some mint lollies. I don't know if you have them in Canada. We'll sort you out. And some glacé cherries. And basically you need a whole bunch of toothpicks, and you like slice up the pineapple in such a way that you can put a piece of pineapple with a bit of mint lolly, don't look at me, Chris, and a glacé cherry on top, and you pop it on, looks nice and festive, really jazzes up the Christmas table.
There we go, semi-professional bakers.
And, you know...
Glacé cherry pineapple boats.
It really was the one thing my mum, apart from her caramel slice, did really well.
There you go.
No cooking involved whatsoever.
That's why it was okay. Tanner, they said the colour was really nice on the outside and the icing looked inviting. They said the crust was really buttery as well. You could see that. They said the frangipane needed more baking. Too much jam, but they said that's a minor complaint. And overall, the balance and the flavour was actually quite nice. And Mahathi, they said there was a little bit of leakage from the icing, which meant it was too warm when it was iced. The jam was very well strained, however, and they said that, again, and this is something that came back before with Mahathi as well, really nice contrast and balance of flavours. They said the flavour was good. Even if there were some issues around the outside, the flavour was good.
And her pastry was good, despite it being too thin and too...
Yeah, and we'll get to that as well, because she does that twice. Like, she did it again in the Showstopper.
Yeah.
So Maggie was 5th, Sheldon was 4th, Mahathi was 3rd, Tanner was 2nd, and Rafficat was 1st. And again, it was really close. At this time, we were talking about it, and we're like, I don't really know, actually, who's going home.
And I'm like, okay, you can see that it stars kind of between Rafficat and Tanner, and then we've got 3 that could go either way. It's just, yeah.
It was really close. So, the showstopper was a vegetable tart, right? 3 colours of vegetables, minimum.
That was quite... At first, we're kind of like, okay, it's another tart. I'm like, well, I get why the Bakewell was chosen. This one, I think it was a pure looks thing, because there is a lot of prettiness you can do to a tart. But... A lot of this is also, there's a trap of you can make it look good, but can you make it taste good?
See, again, my thing about this challenge, I wanted to see a different style of pastry. Like, I wanted something with a puff. Right? I wanted to see a different style going, because we had a very thin, crispy one for the strudel. Then we had the tart casing.
Yeah.
I really wanted to see a puff.
Or like what's the one they use for the pies, you know, with the lard and the...
Yes, with the dripping and that. I get where you're going with that, yes.
We're not bakers, we're just podcasters.
Yes. But
we think we know everything, but actually we're still learning.
Yes, so, but something along those lines would have been absolutely perfect because it would have given just the contrast, and they would have needed 3 different styles of pastry. Yep. But, look, it wasn't a horrible challenge. Didn't hate it.
I did like that they chose to just narrow it down to vegetables.
Yep.
Because they are a tricky thing to... Because, like, for a pie, for example, your filling, you can pre-cook. Like, that's not a problem. Your tart, though, you need to have those vegetables to be able to cook in the tart in order to get the prettiness happening. Like, you can hide your filling underneath it. But whatever you choose to do with those veggies on top, and this is where Tanner's genius came through today, was his choice to use one zucchini, but also to lay it flat.
Yes, which then gave it the feathering that he wanted. So Mahathi was making a short crust. Turned out to be a very short crust with eggplant, okra, and coconut curry, which sounded really nice. It must be said. And boy does that woman know how to handle a coconut. Now let's.
She is the fruit pirate princess. She was probably like handling a machete in coconuts at the age of 1.
Now, where we need the further clarification from,
and she's swinging through the masts on a rope with her father, and he's got her under his arm. He's like, Mahathi, catch this, and he tosses her the machete, and he's like, now there's a coconut up ahead, and on the crow's nest there's this coconut perched. He's like, crack it, Mahathi, and steely-eyed little baby Mahathi just goes along and boom. Perfectly cracked coconut. She's just a natural.
Now, what we need further
Born to it.
what we need further clarification on
She's
is:
a nutcracker.
did the fruit pirate only deal in fruit, or did the fruit pirate also deal in vegetables?
Is he a produce pirate rather than a fruit pirate?
I mean, I think he's possibly fruit pirate when in season. He's a seasonal fruit pirate.
He's a seasonal pirate. You know,
Yeah,
like
he's a seasonal pirate.
he sails the 7 seasonals.
What are the 7 seasonals? Anyway, that's a question for another day. But I
I was
like.
going to say that's like a musical by I don't know.
Now, surely the 7 seasonals is a Moody Blues album, isn't it? No, that's the 7th Sojourn. Sorry, I got really
It's a
close.
Rodgers and Hammerstein, little known production. Their answer to Pirates of Penzance.
They saw 7 Brides for 7 Brothers and went, that, but Pirates of Penzance. Let's push them together. The 7 seasonals. But no, she definitely knew. Like, the way that she got the coconut, just hit it. It breaks perfectly. She's like, aha! And you're just like, yeah, she's good at that. That was really well done.
How she intimidates the scurvy dogs into taking their vitamin C.
So Sheldon, now he was doing a short crust with lime leaves in it. So that was really interesting. And like Alan was like, ooh, the scent of that's really nice.
Yeah, and they didn't look like kaffir lime leaves. They looked
No,
like
they
different.
weren't. They named it. I can't remember for the life of me what it was. But at this point, Sheldon did something that immediately I went, what the hell are you doing? So he came back and he went, I've put some of these vegetables in the microwave. Because I saw him go to the microwave. Why are you going to the microwave? And then he comes back and goes, I microwaved some of these just to sort of get a bit of a start on them.
Look, unless you're Michael Scott and you got your little pouches of vegetables that you just put in the microwave for dinner.
Or, you know, you have a Foreman grill, which also helps.
Yeah, that's for your bacon, though.
Yeah, it's for your bacon.
In the morning, if you don't have a butler.
You don't want to...
If you have a butler, you don't have to worry. They can make you bacon.
Exactly. But I think, look, I was worried because I'm like, but that's going to keep the moisture in the vegetables. It's not going to roast the moisture out. And it's going to be soggy. Don't do that. And he's like, oh, it should be fine. I'm like, no, look in the bowl. They're soggy.
Because what you want in the vegetables is for it to caramelize. You want the sugars to be, like, particularly in your root vegetables, you want the sugars to develop in the carbohydrate in the root vegetables. Look at me, I learned shit from MasterChef.
It's amazing.
God.
I know.
Who knew 10 seasons, 12 seasons, how many fucking seasons of MasterChef I've
15
watched?
fucking seasons, anyway. 900 seasons, anyway.
Feels like it.
Watermelon radish.
Just last year's, for instance.
I know. Watermelon radish, beets, and sweet potato.
And particularly like roasted beets, like, okay, I can't talk about this to you.
No,
Because
talk to the audience, because not me.
Okay, roasted beetroot. I mean, us Australians, we pop it on hamburgers. Not necessarily roasted, just sliced up, whacked on a hamburger. It's delicious. But when you roast them, that delicious yumminess.
What the
really
hell
comes
noise
through.
was that?
That's the roasted beetroot noise. And you wouldn't know because you don't like beetroot. Think of when you roast a capsicum. That kind of taste. But beetrooty and awesome.
But beetrooty and awesome.
Yes.
So, speaking of peppers and capsicums, and, you know, again, the whole pepper thing, Rafakat was making a peppery bechamel with mushroom, peppers, sweet potato, and kale, and then said, these are the only vegetables I eat. So we're learning more about Rafakat's diet. I don't know what this woman eats apart from 4 vegetables.
Potatoes, she told us.
And potatoes. Right, sorry, 5 vegetables.
Fiddle-dee-dee potatoes.
5 vegetables.
I think it's a bit easier to name the things she does eat rather
She
than
doesn't
things
eat.
she doesn't eat.
Well, she doesn't eat cheese. We've learnt that one.
Nope. No dumplings.
No, there's a ton of things she's never had, and like in this case, it's like these are the only 4 vegetables I'll eat. Interesting choices too: mushroom, peppers, sweet potato, and kale.
But they work together. Like, I could see that working. The only thing I was worried about for her, Maggie, and Sheldon as well, is the thick. Even though they're thin slices, they're going to be vertical in the tart. You know, like how they're positioned. Yeah, it looks pretty on top. But how can it cook evenly through?
I mean, the benefit was with most of all 3 of those used sweet potato as one of them.
Yeah.
Right, sweet potato cooks really well like that.
Yeah, but to make sweet potato better, you need it to get a little bit of caramelization on the edge.
And that's where the top edge goes caramel. So the top edge caramelizes.
But is it enough?
Yeah, because you get two slightly different textures with the sweet potato.
But you're not going to get that if you microwaved it.
Well, not if you've microwaved it. So two of them would get that texture, and the other one was Sheldon.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of mush in the middle of his. And we'll come back to Sheldon's mush, because it was impressive. But back to Raffy Cat for a minute.
Yeah.
So the mushrooms are brave. You've got to cook your liquid out of your mushrooms, otherwise they'll just get really soggy. Mm-hmm. The capsicums came out really well. Mm-hmm. The sweet potato came out really well. Kale is a tricky one. There is very much a love or a hatred of kale.
You used to hate kale.
I was in the hate kale. It's Bake Off that turned me on it.
It was, a particular baker cooked you kale, and you're like...
Came up and said, this is the way to eat kale. Don't worry about the way that everyone else is eating kale.
Nope.
Put it in an oven. Cover it with a bit of oil.
And chili.
A bit of chili and a little bit of garlic.
Yeah.
Just put it in the oven and bake it until you've got the crispy chips. Mm-hmm. And do kale chips with a bit of chili and a bit of garlic on them and a little bit of olive oil and bang. And sure enough, love them. Never look back. Will I do kale in a salad? No. Why? Because it's kale. And no. Flavour what? No.
What about a kale slaw?
Not a chance. I don't like kale slaw either. The only way I'll eat kale is when it's covered with chili and garlic.
Okay.
Says a lot about it. All right. So then we cut over to Tanner, who's going with sage and butternut squash tart and zucchini on top. Mm-hmm. But the key part of this...
A risotto.
Now, as veterans of food television, we panicked because, you see, there is a bit of a theory that goes around, especially in Australia with food television. No one
has successfully cooked a risotto in a competition before.
It doesn't happen.
No.
It's always either too watery or too dry.
Too gluggy.
Far too gluggy. The flavour doesn't come through because the rice doesn't cook properly.
Congeals.
Yep, something goes wrong with risotto every single time. And Tanner, who was having a great week, goes, risotto. And we went, oh, no, Tanner, no, don't do that, don't do that, Tanner. Tanner managed something that no one else can do.
Yeah.
That risotto worked. Like Bruno was like, now risottos are a really tricky thing to do.
Yeah.
But this one worked.
Yeah.
His understanding of his flavours were brilliant.
And the techniques and what he had the ability to do in the time he was allotted to produce the effect that he did was brilliant. And as Kayla pointed out, the way the zucchini feathered.
Yes, it came out beautifully. So Bruno went over and warned her about rubbery vegetables. He probably should have warned Sheldon instead. But he warned Maggie about having rubbery vegetables, and she was like, "No, it's okay. I've used brown butter, Bruno."
The beautiful thing is, though, is Sheldon's now created vegetables that you can then process into, makeshift gloves if they run out of personal protective equipment.
100% ready to go. You're right. Carrot, sweet potato, and beets again for Maggie, with Gruyere cheese was her filling as well. So we're looking at this and we're getting all of these casing. It looks really good, and we're getting all the vegetables. And then suddenly, well, it's the way it shatters that matters, really, isn't it? And we got this massive crack. And everyone's like, what the hell was that? And Sheldon just looks and he goes, I had a jug next to the heat.
Oh, it was the baking gods foreshadowing.
Now, the problem was he was making...
The crushing of his, dream.
The destroying of his peanut sauce. Because he was making a peanut sauce. He's like, well, that's too close to the peanut sauce. Now, I've had that happen, not with peanut sauce. I had a very high-end wok, and it had a lid.
It did.
And the lid was a glass lid. And I put the glass lid on top of the wok.
As you should be able to do.
And it is a tempered glass lid. It should be fine. There shouldn't be a problem with it. And I've picked the handle up. And as I've picked the handle up, the entire lid just went crack and broke into my meal.
Yep.
I'd been cooking for a good 45 minutes. And when I picked the handle up, the whole glass just shattered and fell into the pan.
Yeah. This is not a violet crumble moment. It's not the way it shatters that matters. You just don't want a wok lid to shatter.
No, and you don't really want it all the way through your food. You've got to, like I said, you had to throw it out. I was really happy with the flavours too.
What were you cooking in a wok for 45 minutes though? Is that the issue?
Well, I wasn't using the wok as a wok because it's one of the woks which is like a combination pan.
You just wanted some wok hay.
I wanted wok hay, yeah. That's what I was after.
Like a stroganoff?
No, it wasn't a stroganoff. It might have been a bolognese.
Huh.
I think it was actually. I think I was doing a slow cook bolognese.
Look, I just think, you need a bit of wok wherever you can get it.
Always do. And then we get a phrase I would never have expected. Now for the owl. Tanner had a week. Like, seriously, he's, like they said at one point in the judging, we've been waiting for your wow moment. And, like, Tanner was determined that this was it. And he literally, his flavour balances all the way through the episode was superb. His design on this, as you said, the way that the zucchini, because again, once the zucchini goes into the oven, it crinkles up and feathers up, so it looked amazing. Like, the pattern and design and the thought that went into that was incredible.
I really hope that this is not his peak, but just his hitting his stride right when you need to.
Speaking of hitting their stride, look, we all know that I have certain things that I look out for that endear me to bakers. And one of the things was when they cut to Maggie and she's standing there and it's like a very narrow shot on Maggie and she's like, yeah, look, I'll clean this up in a second. And I'm like, oh, yeah, because there's one pot handle there. And then they slowly pull out. On World War III, her bench is so... I'm wondering if they got the pots from the other benches. Because surely she didn't use that many pans.
Look, if I was the editor, that would have been a slow pan with the Apocalypse Now music playing and maybe a slight red tinge.
All you hear overhead is of the choppers coming in to rescue.
Alternatively, it's a TVSN ad. Do you have trouble cooking in the kitchen and you just, massive mess and just Maggie shaking her head?
One guy's going to appear with a single sponge that does it all.
It's a mop. It's a bucket. It's a
bucket.
It's not quite a mop. It's not
quite a bucket. But, oh boy. So to answer your question, I don't know what it is. So I absolutely loved that bench reveal. That was just the way they pulled out. I was so proud. Maggie, I am so proud of you for that bench. Please never change.
Her ode to James.
It was. Now, Raffacat was at the oven at this point, like begging it. Please be brown on the bottom. Please be brown on the bottom. I think she was begging the tart. Fairly certain. Please be brown on the bottom.
It was
Please be brown on the bottom.
The fourth step.
Yeah, it was.
Bartering.
It is. It's followed by acceptance, which is where Mahathi got to in a minute. So they started to detin. And like Mahathi accidentally detinned. So she was getting it out of the oven and she put her hand in the middle of it and you just saw the ring just sort of fall and go up her arm.
I hate that. Luckily she was wearing that mitt that was long enough.
But yeah, I was about to say, because what I wanted to comment on, it did actually get onto her. I'm like, that owl. How the hell she didn't register that there was a hot pan on her, I don't quite know. But like it came off and like it broke a part of the shell off and you're like, oh, not again, Mahathi. And then like it started to crumble completely. And like the more she held it, I was terrified. Because I was watching the little bit crumble off the side and I'm like, put the thing down. I just got this image of the whole tart collapsing.
It did.
And being left with a handprint.
It was reminiscent of those ads that show you, the Arctic and the and the icebergs melting. You're just waiting for a little polar bear to wander across the tart.
Polar bear just on top of the tart looking and sitting down.
Yeah.
So, the judging. So, Raffacat, they said it looked generous and classic. They then said the height was really good, but Kyla wanted her to do more blistering on the capsicum in particular so that she could make the turns tighter.
Yeah.
Because she said the problem was it wasn't quite as malleable as you wanted it to be.
She really needed to go off, get more blister on the tart. She needed to go off. Anyway.
Raffacat, I know you're the one. Anyway, they said it was great crust on the outside, but unfortunately it wasn't an even bake. So it was. As it moved from the outside in, it got blonder and blonder. They said that
until in the centre was Paris Hilton.
Exactly, and the bechamel was
throat fright. My God,
this is not hard.
That's not hard.
The bechamel was saved, however, by the pepper. They said that the peppery flavour through the bechamel saved the whole thing. Maggie, sense of abundance. La abbondanza, which means abundance.
In Italian, because you said la.
Yeah, I know.
It's le abundance.
No.
If it's French.
That's from Saturday Night Live sketch. So
sorry.
Sherry O'Terry, who does this thing with Will Ferrell when they were hosting their morning show thing, and she goes, La abbondanza, where they go, which means acceptance. He goes, no, it means abundance. She's like, abundance. So they said if the veggies were a bit thinner, you'd actually get more filling in there. They said the pastry, however, for Maggie's was absolutely perfect. The veggies were slightly underdone, but the flavours were really good. We love you, Maggie, but you were really close this week. This was tight.
Yeah.
It was really tight. Mahathi, they noticed the pastry issue. And can I just say, Mahathi, this is one of the reasons why we love you so much. Grabbing the vine tomatoes.
Yep.
And sitting them in front of the bit that fell off.
It's illusion.
And I love the way that Kyla's like, this is really creative, but I'm just going to move these. We know why they're there. It was a genius idea. Evenly baked underneath. They said very crumbly, obviously, and falling apart, but they said that it was beautifully baked, actually. And the flavours, they absolutely loved the flavours and were like, your mother would be proud of these flavours.
Yes.
So that was really good. Sheldon. Now, they said the colours were really creative. And again, he'd used that shot of the Balinese sunset.
Yeah. No, Borneo.
Borneo sunset, sorry. Which was beautiful. My only thing with it was it looked like in the cooking process that everything had shrunk up.
Yeah.
So there were like lots of big gaps between the colours. And then they pointed out that the fact that he used the smaller tin made it look small and made them go, we're not quite sure if this is 2 hours worth of baking.
Yeah, the bits of skin left on the mandolin speak otherwise.
Exactly.
That would have been a very different movie, wouldn't it? Captain Corelli's mandolin.
It was just him slicing vegetables for a couple of hours.
Yeah, was it Monica? What's her name? Bellucci, yeah, and Nick Cage.
I mean, Nick Cage. I would pay to watch Nick Cage for 2.5 hours just mandolin vegetables.
He just worked as...
Whoa, I'm confused. Anyway.
He's cooking for the Italian army and they're all upset because all he does is slice vegetables.
Like, enough of this. Enough. We're done. No more sliced carrot. No more carrot.
He's just giving TVSN demonstrations using the mandolin. It slices, it dices.
Imagine Nick Cage working for, like, shopping networks. Like Nick Cage trying to sell you a mandolin would be terrifying. He would slice his face off and replace it with Travolta's.
Hi, I'm Nick Cage. You might remember me from Captain Corelli's Mandolin and Face Off. Well, today I'm bringing you both.
Hi, I'm Nick Cage, and you might remember me from such John Travolta films as Saturday Night Fever and Grease. So they said that everything was pretty with his, but unfortunately it looked small. And then when they cut into it, the middle was mushy. And as they said, what did you do? And he goes, I cooked it in the microwave. And Bruno looked at him and just went, oh, Sheldon, why would you do that? And this is the problem, is the microwave hurt his cooking. I think, here's the thing. And again, Maggie, we love you. But if Sheldon doesn't use a microwave, Maggie goes home.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. I think it's the sogginess in the middle is the difference between Sheldon going home and Maggie going home.
Because I think they were, like, while pastry's important, we're talking about baking. And, you can't have a tart without filling. Like, if you're going to be a baker and you're going to do savoury stuff, you have to know your filling and how to treat it.
Challenge would be a blind baked tart.
Yeah.
That's it. Literally just judging the blind bake.
It's not the Great Canadian Pastry Off or Dough Off.
That feels like a spin-off. You're welcome. Tanner. Now, as I said, the owl was his first big wow moment. They said looked appetising, and Bruno was amazed with the fact that he nailed that risotto. He's like, that was so well balanced. So we got to the judging. It was very hard. This was a really hard week to pick. Before we got into the showstopper, we were like, I think it's between Tanner and Rafikat.
Yeah.
And then I think everybody else is up for grabs to go home. And Tanner wins Star Baker and deserved it.
Absolutely.
My word, that is a week, Tanner. That is a brilliant. And again, What I want everyone to just remember is that this is somebody who started baking after watching the Great Canadian Baking Show and managed to do a decent enough Bakewell tart from memory.
I thought that was brilliant.
That's an achievement.
Yeah.
The sending people home, as I said, I kind of felt like it was between Maggie and Sheldon. Either of those was going to hurt.
Yeah.
Well, any of them would hurt, in all honesty, at the moment. And Sheldon ends up being the one that has to go. And it just, again, it sucks. I mean, the slight silver lining is that we get him on the podcast faster, hopefully.
Yeah.
But, it sucks to see him go home. So, look, he's going to be a big loss. He's done so well in there.
Absolutely. And he's such a presence in the... Like, he's not a huge personality. He's just a presence, like a strong, fun presence in the pavilion.
But, like, again, we lose Sheldon, but Tanner, on the other hand, again, what a week.
Absolutely. Tanner brought us an owl that was delectable and delightful.
And everybody else...
Athena and Minerva are just proud.
And everybody else, just safe for another week. Enjoy it. Yeah. It's semi-final week next week.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. This journey has been so long yet so quick.
It's flying.
It is.
And taking forever. And flying all at once. No, it's been really enjoyable so far. I kind of don't want the season to end. No. But obviously it has to come to an end because somebody needs to win the show. Otherwise, it's utterly pointless.
Yes.
So somebody will win, but that'll be in 2 weeks' time. Next week is the semi-final of the Great Canadian Baking Show. No, it's Bake Off. Fuck it. I call it Bake Off. Right. Who will be in the pavilion for the grand final? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm happy with anyone.
Yep. I'm at the moment. I'm happy with anybody. Obviously, we
only those who've actually been in the competition baking. Like, I just don't want
random cardinals.
Random cardinals going. That's it. I relinquish God, and
I want to bake. God has sent me to be the bonus challenger.
Give me the flour and the butter.
Robin Hood. Anyway, all right, so that'll be a lot for this week. We will be back again next week. Mm-hmm. Until then, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we will catch you all later.
Woohoo!